Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here coming at you from the Knife Center, and it's that time of the week where we take a look at the coolest knives that have hit our shelves in the last week. Let's check them out. Alright, the first one I'm not going to spend too much time on because this is actually a restock of the very popular SPDYERCO Bow River. Of course, a Phil Wilson design, coming in about $38 right now. And these have been flying off the shelves ever since they first landed the first time. And we've got a batch of them in right now, so you're not going to want to miss them. Blade length, about 4.5 inches or thereabouts, 8CR13 MOV steel. Not a high-end steel to be sure, but again, really nice and affordable, $38. And we've got these nice, they say it's black and gray, it looks kind of black and white, but you got that nice multi-layered G10 handle, gets a cool look going on. Comes with a leather sheath too, and of course they're marketing this as a fishing knife with the name like Bow River, but it'd be good, of course, in a tackle box on your hip when you're fishing or hunting, but for most of us, in the kitchen, I think this would be a phenomenal little blade. It's got the right kind of manners where it's going to work well at slicing, especially on a cutting board. You've got enough knuckle clearance there thanks to the angle of the belly. It's going to make a great steak knife too. Get yourself a set of those and put those around the table, and it's definitely going to make an impression. But anyway, back in stock right now. Get them while they're hot. All right, for the first new items for the week, or strictly new items, we're going to start with small. We've got a new BENCHMADE. Almost lost my grip on it there. This is a new Jared Oster design. Of course, he had the larger TENGU. Flipper knife was unveiled earlier this year. This is the TENGU tool, a much smaller version, but kind of carries the same type of vibe. This one comes in about $153 right now. It is made in America, being a BENCHMADE. And it's got a blade, but it's technically more of a utility knife, I would say, or utility tool. CPM 20 CV blade steel, which is good because that blade length is only about 1.14 inches long. And actually you've got just about as much edge on the tanto tip as you do on the primary heel of the blade right here. So you do get a little bit more actual edge than just a 1-inch blade would suggest. And of course with 20 CV, since you have so little edge, you're going to want that edge to last as long as possible. So that's a good usage of that steel there to kind of give you the maximum performance you can get out of a form factor that's this small. Now this is a friction folding knife, and the reason they call this the TENGU tool, as you can see when I've folded it closed, you've got a multi-tool, or the whole thing's a multi-tool, but you've got a couple other functionalities here on the tab that sticks up. You've got a bottle opener, of course, which is what makes it a multi-tool, let's be honest. And you've got that mini pry bar tip there. That's gonna work as a flathead screwdriver. It's a bit wide, but it could still work for that sort of usage. And then of course, when you've got it folded open, there's no retention provided by a detent or a back spring. It is a friction folder, as I said. And as you can see, it's not free falling. So you do get a little bit of friction from those handles. And then of course, your thumb there being on the handle itself is gonna keep it from closing when you go to actually use the edge. Those handles are black G10, and you've got white liners and a little white shield inlaid into the front. Kind of mimics a style you would see on old traditional slip joint patterns, but of course using the modern tuxedo looking material. So looks pretty classy to boot. Now as far as carry on this little TENGU tool, folded up, no pocket clip as you can see, but we do have a small leather pocket slip. It's nice and suede, or I don't know if that's the right word, but it's nice and soft on the inside, so it's not gonna scuff up your knife. It's gonna give it some really nice and cozy environs to live in. And it even matches the tuxedo look of the handles with that black leather with some really nice white stitching. The next small little guy we've got today, check this out. We've got a small batch in of some TM Hunt Leave It cleavers now in stock with the curly maple handles. TM Hunt, of course, is very well known for his curly maple on his designs, so it's pretty cool to see that on this little keychain knife here. Because that's what it is, it's a little keychain guy. You've actually got a small Kydex mask that flips over there, and then you've got a nice big ring here on the end that you can loop your keychain through. These come in at $120 or just under, and they are handmade in the USA, so that's quite nice. That's the reason for the expense a little bit here. You've got 01 tool steel, nice darkened finish, and a hollow grind and a very thin edge on these right here. You've got about 1 3/4 inch of actual edge, and it's actually a pretty usable edge itself. The handle itself is only about a 2.5 finger grip for me, But again, if you've got a lanyard or you've got this on your keychain, you're gonna have more to grip onto with your ring and pinky finger there. Gives you a good amount of grip for that edge. And it's very usable. You can slice through open boxes or packaging. You can use the tip right there to pierce through, open things up like a nice little utility knife. Plus, it's just daggone cool. And again, he doesn't make these very often. They are handmade, and we've got a small batch right now. So again, this is one that if you're interested, I wouldn't wait too long on. All right, going up in size just a little bit, but still on the smaller side, we've got some new colorways of the ISONZO folder from MKM. This is a Jesper Vakne's design, and the first of the new colors is a gray FRN with a red aluminum backspacer, which of course gives you that nice oversized lanyard hole. You could even fit a carabiner through there if you want. Of course, we've got the same three great blade shapes that the ISONZOs always come with. This is the clip point here. We've got N690 steel, about 2¼ inches long. So it comes in under 2½ inches. And there's fewer places where that matters now, but there's some places that do have that 2½ inch blade length limit. But even if you don't, it's a nice handy little size. And again, especially if you have a quick release, would make a decent keychain knife, if a little bit on the larger side. But if you don't want to carry it on your keychain, wire pocket clip here on each side, or sorry, on one side, but you can put it on either side. So it's right or left hand carryable, but it is a liner lock, so it's a right hand bias design. About 2½ fingers again, or actually I get a solid 3 fingers on this knife personally. There is a different blade shape. This is the cleaver blade shape, and I apologize, this is actually the old color I have in front of me. The new color with the green FRN comes with an orange pivot collar and an orange backspacer, as well as a blackened blade. Otherwise it's the same, but you got that option on the range of different blade shapes. But on the cleaver blade itself, you've got a little bit of space cut out here, not quite a finger choil, but it does give you space where you could choke up, and on this guy, I can actually get a full 4-finger grip. It's a good utility shape on this cleaver. You've still got a usable point, although the point on that clip point is gonna be a little bit more piercing friendly, of course. Now, as far as opening, both of these two blade shapes come with simply the thumb cutout. You can use your thumb to open it in a typical one-hand fashion. You can even do that little middle finger flick, and I do a pretty good job on this particular design. It works pretty well for me. We've got ball bearings in the pivot, so it rotates nice and smoothly. You're not having to fight any resistance there. We've also got this particular one right here. They've had this particular color combo available with the blue and the orange backspacer before, but they've added the hawkbill blade to this colorway now. You can now get that here. And this one, in addition to the blade cutout, actually got a small flipper tab that works really well. Everything else is about the same. You've got a finger choil there where you can choke up. Although for me, with my, my bigger fingers, the more gentle execution on that cleaver actually works a little bit better for me. But I like the hawkbill blade shape here, especially as a utility knife. Of course, you've got a very definitive point. It's going to slice pierce very easily. I actually think some of our guys over in the warehouse might like using this knife, because you can get this under like a pallet strap or any other like zip ties, that sort of thing. You can really get that point under there, and because of the recurve at the tip, as you pull it back, you're gonna have some good edge contact. I think that recurve is gonna help on a lot of cutting tasks too, whether you're cutting cardboard or opening like a blister package or any of the clam packed stuff. You could pierce through that plastic and rip through it pretty darn easily without the tip kind of slipping out, which can happen sometimes. But they're all really cool no matter which you choose. MKM, of course, Maniago knife makers. They're made in Italy. The price is pretty decent too for what you get from that from an Italian constructed knife, 85 bucks or thereabouts. All right, next I've got a couple of steel wills. There's the new Sedge folder, and there's 2 different sizes. We've got a small and a large, or I should probably call it a medium and a large, really. The largest blade comes in almost 4 inches long, and the small is about 3.5. Now, each of these 2 colors is available in the large or small. I'll show you the large one here first. You've got black G10 with a anodized blue backspacer, good pop of color, and that one comes with the satin blade. You've also got a gray G10 option, and that comes with a red anodized backspacer and a black stone-washed blade. Both of them come with a full flat grind, which is quite nice. It's gonna slice really well, and the shape is really interesting. It actually is designed to sort of mimic, the name of the knife is Sedge, so it's kind of designed to mimic the sedge grass leaf. You get that nice acute shape there plenty of belly. It kind of runs almost the whole length of the edge, but a very acute tip that you can do some nice precise piercing and cutting with that tip. Kind of reminds me of the patata knife pattern, that ethnic pattern from, was it Southern Italy, I think? Kind of very similar here. Now for the small, I find is a little cramped for me. I do have slightly larger than average hands though. To all you people in the comment section who've been waiting for me to say that this time around. As you can see, my pinky kind of scoots off the back end of the handle just a little bit. If you've got regular size or slightly smaller hands, that's not going to be a problem though. The large, however, fits my hand very well. I've even got a little bit extra there. Even if I was wearing work gloves, I could probably have a pretty decent grip on this. And on the large, even though it does not have a finger choil, there's enough space there around the ricasso. You could do a little bit of choking up there if you need to. Liner lock holds things open quite nicely. Now we've got the thumb cutout, or the blade cutout here for thumb opening, because you're not really going to be able to do the middle finger flick too well. Look at that, I just proved myself wrong. I was doing it earlier and I didn't do too good a job, but I must have gotten enough purchase that time. No ball bearings in the pivot here. You've got phosphor bronze washers, so they're nice and smooth, but they're not as kind of free floating as some ball bearings can be. But you've got a good amount of rigidity going side to side with that as a result. Last but not least, you've got a pocket clip. Not reversible, but you have two pocket clips. They give you a second one for the left-hand side, and that comes in the box. All right, now we're going to come to a Bestech. This is the Kombu Arita. Starting at about 90, this particular one comes in at 110. Now this is another knife with an interesting blade shape here that also kind of reminds me of that patata blade shape, only a little bit more abstracted. You've got a very pronounced amount of belly here at the heel, and it still comes to that very acute tip with a straight backed spine on this particular iteration. The steel is Sandvik's 14C28N. Nice fine grained stainless, takes a really nice edge. You've got a high flat grind that leads up to that fuller end blade cutout there, and actually a little bit of a compound grind. Even though the edge itself is all belly, you've got a little bit of a tanto looking compound grind out here near the tip. Makes it maybe a little bit more robust, but you wouldn't know it from looking at it. You still have an insanely sharp, very acute tip right there, almost needle-like in fact. Now sometimes when a knife has a tip that trails, well it's not technically a trailing point, but it almost is, that sweeps up so aggressively, it can sometimes be hard to use that needle-like tip. To counteract that somewhat, we have kind of a pistol grip type of design here. It does bring the orientation of the blade down a little bit. The blade, or the tip, still is a little bit trailing away, but again, it's going to make it a little bit easier to use that tip than if it were a straight handle. I'll just kind of mimic it. In the normal hold right here, you can see where the tip is. If it were coming straight out of the back, you can see it would just trail up and away even further. But so anyway, they get around that a little bit, but the handle feels nice in the hand. Definitely enough length here. You've also got that finger choil to choke up, and a nice little depression here, thumb ramp into the handle itself that makes a really nice place to rest your thumb. Now there are some simpler handle options, but this particular one right here is a carbon fiber and red G10 laminate. Looks really cool, definitely very distinctive. And we've got a liner lock, but the liners are nice and thick here. We've got a nice amount of thickness to those liners. I mean, there's some frame locks out there that have this same amount of thickness or even less. So you've definitely got a good amount of lockup there. Another thing I like about what they've done with these liners, you can see it all the way around the knife, but especially here at the spine, the inside edges here have all been chamfered over. It's not a hard right angle, which is going to make it very comfortable because you have a decent amount of opening there. When you're pressing down, especially the area up here, you're not going to be getting pinched by that inside edge of the liner. It's just a nice little touch. Rounding things out, we've got a milled titanium pocket clip. On this particular one, it's kind of a rose gold color, which it doesn't really pop out. It actually blends in very nicely to the particular color that we get with this handle. And you see that again there on the pivot collar as well. Now from some angles it looks kind of like copper, but in other angles you get a little bit of that rose hue, which I really like. They could have gone with something a little more predictable, so I like that choice here. All right, if you want something fancy like that last knife, but you want something a little bit more conventional, we've got a new version of the Praxis from Civivi here. Price on this is pretty affordable at $75, just under. And we've got a 3 3/4 inch blade with their Damascus steel, which is a 9CR18 MOV based Damascus steel, which means in addition to looking good, you're gonna get some decent performance too. Something probably on par with something like 440C. The Praxis was actually one of the earliest Civivi knives out of the gate, and it was never quite as popular as I thought it should be because the blade shape is very, very useful and has a nice organic shape to it. You've got a very high flat grind for really good slicing, and they've kept the blade stock thin enough too so that it's not a sharpened pry bar by any stretch of the imagination. The grind and the thickness really work well together here to make it a phenomenal slicer. And you got that swedge along the spine to help it move through materials a little bit better, a little bit more efficiently. Like most Civivis, we've also got a very fine, a very thin edge that's ground and sharpened very nicely. A little bit of a finger choil here. It's a little bit small for my particular fingers, but again, as I said earlier, I've got some big fingers. The handles on this one are purple G10, and we get a black liner and a black deep carry pocket clip here, which is reversible for either side. And it really is nice and deep carry, just a tiny little bit sticking up above that black plane. And the purple and black really look good together. I don't want to call it a Ravens knife, but if you're a Baltimore football fan, this is the knife for you for sure. But even if you're not, it's really nice. And again, I always like seeing more knives or more colors than just black. This purple is a nice color, but it's not too shouty too. So, sometimes some of the really bright colors can be a turnoff. I think this is a really nice compromise that gives you something a little bit different than the ordinary. Forgot to mention the flipping action on this knife. It is a Civivi. Not all of them do, but most do, as does this, come with ball bearings in the pivot. So you've got a really nicely tuned flipper. And the reason these are made so well at the price they come in at is Civivi is actually the budget sister brand to VIII Knife Company that makes some really premium stuff, such as this next knife. This is a new version of the ÆTERNA knife designed by Elijah Isham. Comes in at about $298 right now, and there's a couple new versions actually. This one right here has a gold anodized titanium. We've also got a standard gray titanium frame. And what we've been calling these is sort of a split integral design. Now when you look at the spine, it looks like an integral titanium knife. There's no separation there, and this gold actually comes down through to the finger guard here. But these carbon fiber bits, rather than simply being inlays or onlays, actually forms a part of the structural piece of the handle itself. You can see it's attached here, splits off from the gold, and reattaches back here. So it's a really interesting look, but you still get a good amount of strength from that solid piece of titanium that, again, stretches from the finger guard up around the spine and then back towards the other side like a normal integral would. The lock bar here, you can see it comes with an insert right here, or not necessarily an insert, but an actual separate piece that bolts on to the titanium itself. Has a nice little look, and like any VIII Knife Company design, just like that Civivi we just looked at, we've got a nicely tuned flipper with ball bearings in the pivot. Nice subtle flipper tab here. It's not sticking out straight back, instead it's sticking up. Still flips open the blade quite nicely. Now for my bigger hands, this back end gets in the way of my palm just a little bit, but again, this is mostly a style piece that could still do some pretty good work if you needed it to. Because it looks great, but it still comes with M390 steel, modified Warncliffe shape, about 3¼ inches, and they did knock the tip off just a little bit to make it a little bit stronger there, but you're still gonna be able to pierce very well with it. But make sure to check these out. If you don't like this particular color, there are a few other options, as I said. All right, next up, we've got a new reasonably priced butterfly knife. This is the Bear Ops Bear Song 8 Balisong, coming in at about $106. Now, Bear Ops, of course, is the higher end offshoot from Bear & Sons cutlery. And if you're familiar, I should say, with the Bear & Sons Balisongs, they're definitely entry level. This is a bit more premium. The action is a lot smoother. The pivots are tighter. They're free floating, but you know what I mean by tighter in that case. They just feel rock solid. They're really glassy smooth, in fact. Steel here is 154 cm. We've got that clip point shape, about 4½ inches long. And a really nice touch here that sometimes you need to spend a little bit more money on your balisong to get is a crown spine. So as you're doing tricks, when the spine comes into contact with your hand, it's going to be a bit more comfortable than a squared off spine would be. Now the handles are stainless steel and they come with a black Cerakote finish. And even though they're stainless steel, they're not super duper heavy. We've got a ton of weight has been removed with these cutouts. And as you can see, they're open backed on each side. There's nothing closing off the path. So they're not super heavy and they actually balance really well with the blade. Now, as far as carrying this knife, you could actually use this knife as an EDC pretty easily because it does come with a pocket clip. It is removable and you could put it on either side. And like the latch, that also gives you another kind of visual as well as tactile reminder of which handle you're actually on when you're practicing or performing your tricks. Now, that latch is retained by a spring. You can see it right here on a pin right there. That's going to keep it sticking out straight when you're flipping, so it's not going to kind of come around and get in your way at all. Now, you could certainly remove that if you want. You could take the pin out completely if you want to. And then if the spring were to get lost or break, that would be able to be replaced pretty easily too. All right, coming down onto the home stretch a little bit here, we've got a couple of EDC fixed blades to show you. This first one is from our friend Jake HOBACK. It's his Goliath pocket fixed blade, comes in at $165, and you can get it either with a stonewashed finish or this black DLC stonewash. That steel is 20 CV, and of course you can see you've got that nice upswept Tonto profile. In fact, if I didn't know any better, I'd say this was a fixed blade Quaken, or a very EDC friendly fixed blade Quaken. But 20 CV steel is going to give you a really good amount of edge retention, and of course you've got a really nice blade shape. The Tonto I don't think would get in the way too much. Me personally, I prefer a drop point. I actually find plenty of use for the belly on a knife in my day-to-day, and I wouldn't really feel like I was lacking with this particular shape here. It's very well considered. The handles are black G10, very slim, but still with a good amount of texture. This is not a knife that you're going to be able to get a full, really hard-working grip onto. It's a bit more slim, nice classy letter opener, just small to medium use EDC, no problem at all. For me, it's about a 3.5 finger grip. If I were going to change anything, I'd probably want to scoop out this index finger groove a bit more. It is a bit on the small side, but it doesn't get in the way of what you're needing to do. Now, I say pocket fixed blade because this actually is a very pocketable blade right out of the box. It comes, in fact, with a nice little pocket clip right there. So you could clip it to the inside of your pocket and get to that knife very easily, pull it in and out of that Kydex, no problem. Now, if you wanted to carry this some other way, you could. You could remove that pocket clip, and you've got a few holes here where you could create your own belt loop if you want with some cordage. You could do a horizontal carry across the waistband if you want to. Large or small tech locks are not going to fit this, however. The holes aren't spaced so that they're compatible with those. But you could also wear this as a neck knife if you strung a lanyard or a breakaway chain through these top holes here. It would rest very nicely that way. All right, this next one, another EDC friendly fixed blade, is actually a collaboration between Prometheus Design Works and Audacious Concept. It's a new version of Audacious Concept's Backcountry Scalpel. This version now comes, instead of that very sheep's foot profile, now comes with a small drop point blade. Price on these are $139. The material is S35 VN. Blade stock itself is pretty thick, and it's very comfortable too, because all the surfaces that you're actually going to be gripping have been crowned over completely, both on the top and the bottom edge of the knife, so that you're not getting pinched by any of those hard corners. Kind of similar to what we talked about earlier with that one BestTech. But it pinches up real nicely with these two spots right here. Gives you a good amount of grip to actually work that smaller blade hard. So even though it is small, you've got a nice amount of control. And they actually give it a very aggressive hollow grind too, to keep the edge itself actually surprisingly thin for the thickness of the metal. I was very surprised by that. And it just does a very good job. You're not going to be slicing through long strips of cardboard very efficiently because you're going to get up to the shoulders there and you're going to start to get some push out. But for any of the smaller things, you're going to be able to do it pretty well thanks to that nice hollow grind. Of course, you've got your small utility stuff, but probably a good small game knife too. Very controllable, easy to get the tip out there, not too much to get in the way. You can fit into some really nice tight places if you need to. Now the sheath here is also Kydex, as you can see, and it comes with some cordage supplied to do a lanyard or to make your own belt loops. Now, as far as aftermarket support, I did check, and this whole spacing from side to side will work with a small tech lock, so you've got that option available here as well. All right, back to folders. I've got a new affordably priced Kershaw here. This is the Husker, coming in at 26 bucks. As you'd imagine from that price point, we do see Kershaw's most affordable materials being used here. We've got HCR13 MOV. Blade itself comes in just under 3 inches, so it's a nice little size. And we've got a good stonewashed finish and a hollow grind. I like the shape overall. I like the amount of belly. This is going to be a really good slicing knife, again, especially for the price. It's going to be a very affordable little EDC. Good knife to start out on for some folks, or might even be a good disposable knife for some of you folks out there that might need to take a knife somewhere. You might be worried about losing it. You wouldn't really feel, or I wouldn't really feel like I'm missing out on too much by carrying this knife because it's a nice little design. Carries nice and slim. We've got stainless steel handles, so not a whole lot of bulk in the pocket. A little bit heavier though because it's stainless steel, but it's certainly not heavyweight. Pocket clip, reversible, works well on either side. Frame lock to keep things nice and secure, and you can see from the pivot hardware there, we've got that nice over travel arrestor built into that area. And this is a speed safe assisted opening knife, so it flips open very fast every time. All right, now I've got perhaps the most Swiss Army knife you've ever seen. This is the 2020 limited edition Swiss Spirit Explorer, and as you can see, we've got Switzerland graphics on the front and on the back. So yeah, it doesn't get much more Swiss in terms of a Swiss Army knife than this. But you've got a nice mountainous graphic here with a nice little flag, Swiss flag planted on the top, the word Switzerland emblazoned across it, and some stereotypically Swiss things here on the back. Looks like we've got some Swiss cheese, we've got a watch, we've got a small Swiss Army knife, a few other things there that look pretty cool. The other cool thing about these, this particular scale, or these particular scales on this one, is this has what Victorinox calls their plus scales. And in addition to the toothpick and tweezers, you get a few cool extras, including a pressurized ballpoint pen. So that's kind of like a Fisher Space Pen. It can write upside down. And you've got just a nice little writing implement there without taking up any extra space. You also get a small pin here in the scales once you move the corkscrew out of the way, like a little sewing type of pin. And you've also got a nice set of eyeglass screwdrivers, or a nice eyeglass screwdriver that comes out of the corkscrew there as well. Now, one of the tricks you can do with that pen that's included, you can see here we've got the parcel hook there on the back. You can actually slip that pen into the slot when it's open, close it up, and write a little bit more easily than you could if you were just trying to grip that tiny narrow piece of metal. Kind of a nice little trick. But apart from the collectible nature, it's just a good model overall. There's a ton of nice tools. Of course, you got your blade, your scissors, an assortment of screwdrivers, even a small magnifying glass in this case. Just a really cool piece. And if you're into Swiss Army knives, you're definitely going to want to collect this. If you're into Switzerland at all, you're probably also going to want this. Last but not least, I've got a Condor fixed blade. Here in the clam pack, I apologize for that. It's their new 7-inch butcher knife that comes in at about 29 or just under 30 bucks right now. Now, as far as the shape and everything, of course, it's very traditional, kind of like the old hickories that are very popular. I know they probably don't want me to mention that, but it's unmistakable. Like, as soon as you see this, you think, oh, it's Condor's take on an old hickory. And I will say this, it's a little bit more expensive than most old hickories, but even just looking through the package here, it seems to be a little bit more nicely built than some of the old hickories. Don't take that as a dig on those knives. I love those old hickory knives. I do a lot of stuff with them, but right out of the box, this does appear to be just a little bit nicer, a little bit more nicely put together. Steel is 1075. Of course, it is a 7-inch butcher knife blade, so a very traditional shape. Going to work well in the kitchen, going to work well as a larger hunting knife or any kind of animal processing you might need. You know, it's been said that the 7-inch or thereabouts butcher knife is the knife that conquered the American West. You can certainly do a lot of work with this type of blade. The handles are hardwood, and you can see here at the leading edge, it's kind of rounded over, just the same as it is on all the sides, so it's going to be nice and comfortable. You're going to be able to pinch grip really nicely. I do remember holding this in person at SHOT Show earlier this year, and it was very comfortable at that time. Scales are nice and flush, and there at the back, you've even got a protruding tang there. You could hang it up or hang the knife up with that. You could use it as a little bit of a scraper if you're using this out at camp, anything like that. It's a pretty cool design, and I'm happy to see a few more alternatives to those popular other knives that we were talking about earlier. All right, that's all I've got to show you this week. Make sure to let me know down in the comments what your favorites were, what you thought about these designs. I would love to hear that. In the meantime, if you want to get your hands on any of these knives, make sure you click the link in the description and it'll take you over to KnifeCenter.com. And make sure you're signed up for our Knife Rewards program while you're there, because if you're going to buy one of these knives, you might as well earn some free money to spend on your next one. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center. I hope you're all staying safe, sane, and sanitary out there. See you next time.